Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Return to the Realm, a rereaders podcast of the Realm of the Elderling series by Rob and Hobb. I'm Kayiu, here with Alex and Leah, and today we're going to be covering chapters 15 through 19, hopefully, maybe, possibly that entire range, of Madship. And I'm that uncertain because this is a long section. I know we say every episode that this is the section where things start happening, but no, this is really the section where things start happening. Brashen returns home, and after letting the Vestrits know of Vivacia's fate, they come together with a plan to recapture her, setting into motion all of the stuff around, hey, the titular madship, Paragon. But before we get into all of that, as always, this is a rereaders podcast, so we're going to have spoilers not only for this book, not only for this trilogy, but the entire Realm of the Elderling cycle. So if you haven't read all 16 books and don't want spoilers, then click off now. Otherwise, let's get directly into Chapter 15, Tidings. This chapter is basically just Brashen's homecoming, and then a bunch of disconnected scenes of, or a bunch of scenes of the Vestrits interacting with each other. But the biggest part of it is just Brashen coming home and giving them the bad news.
I think that it's so wild that they find out about Vivacia in this section, and then they already have a plan in place by the time we end this chapter, like this section's chapters of reading.
Brashen and Amber move fast.
And to be fair, even they say it's not so much a plan as a pipe dream at that point.
It becomes a plan pretty quickly, though.
Thank you, Malta.
Thanks to Malta. I am so team Malta. After this, I was so proud of her in this section.
Same. I was like, she's such a big girl now.
She's putting her Biko pants on.
It's there's only one person she cares about more than herself, and that's her dad. But what an unfortunate person to care about.
Yeah, definitely. If she could care about someone else, that would be great. Mm-hmm. And I think she is starting to like Rain. Even in the sections before this, when she was talking to Ronica and Kefria about how Rain is or something like that, it sounds like she's really starting to like him, even though she won't kind of admit that to herself.
Oh yeah, she's definitely I think Serwyn, just by existing, makes Rain seem more fancy and mysterious.
Especially once she sees Brashen and realizes how young Serwyn still is, and especially how inexperienced he is, because she's Rain would have brought me flowers at least.
Well, and when she sneaks out to meet him and she's mad that he doesn't kiss her, she's Rain would have kissed me, Brashen would have kissed me. Serwyn's just a baby child.
I'm a homegirl. You're my family is in danger. I think any person would be this is kind of an inappropriate time to make a move.
It's not. I love how she jumps from Serwyn and she's he's useless. He won't give me what I need, so let me just open tonight and see if Wayne can give it to me. Are you kidding me?
And she tries to seduce Brashen just for the fun of it.
Yeah, that was
it even says it's not she liked him. She just wanted to see how he would react.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes him supremely uncomfortable.
As it should. I feel if he were a different man, he could have been into it, and that would have been so gross.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God Brashen's got morals. Not such great ones, considering he's going through Sindon withdrawal of this whole section, but morals nonetheless.
Yeah, and addiction is just sort of, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a moral failing here. I I kind of feel like it.
It is though.
Yeah, Brashen has lots more moral stupid things going on than just like the Zendin. Like, I'm a pirate now, by the way, and the whole thing about like I don't want to be a hero. I'm gonna let it. I don't care. I'm just living for myself. And it's like, you're such a child, Brashen.
He has Wintro syndrome where he thinks that he can't make a difference because he's only one person.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the whole moral of like this whole series.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like.
Yeah. Everybody except Amber has Wintro syndrome.
Yeah, actually.
Wintro just gets to be the one that it's named after because he did it first. Trailblazing.
I think that this is like the first time that I've noticed in a Hobb book them saying the word fuck. Because Malta basically insinuates that Althea and Amber are fucking. And Althea says, if you mean fuck, say fuck. Like, is that the first time you get the fuck word in a Robin Hobb book? Like, this came out of nowhere.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen it in any of the other ones. I was like startled. I was like, wait.
I know.
And she wrote it twice.
Right. And Althea is saying it.
I mean, out of anybody,
that's
I think
not-
that it would be her.
Right. I guess that's true.
Fitz would be mortified. He would never. He'd be like, if you mean making love, say making love. You guys think you're such a ridiculous romantic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess I could see, like, the only other character I could really see saying it is Starling.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Yeah.
She would say it.
Yeah, even when like Fitz is like pissed out of his mind, he's like, "I would never bed with you, fool." He can't even say it then. But yeah, honestly, I just like, given how like generally mature in theme these books are, I just kind of assume that they like dropped an F-bomb at some point.
Right.
Which, like, not saying that you need profanity just because your themes are mature, but like, I don't know. I always thought that like Hobb could ride that line pretty easily, so.
Yeah, and she slips it in real nice. Speaking of Malta, this happens a little bit before, but it was so sad to me. And like, Malta says, like, Veronica's walking out of the room, and Malta's like all by herself, and she says this like knowing that Veronica is still within earshot, and she's like, she hates me, that old woman hates me. And I know that she's doing it just to kind of get a rise out of Veronica, or like make them notice her, but I think that deep down she definitely believes that like her grandma actually hates her.
Oh yeah, this is not like the first time she's thought it.
Well, and Veronica hears it and doesn't say or do anything. Like, if I said that within earshot of one of my grandparents, they'd be like, I don't hate you, I just don't like the way you're acting right now. Or like, something along those lines.
Veronica's basically
Veronica just says nothing, because she's basically like, yeah, I do hate that bitch.
She's like, yeah, I do. Yeah, bitch, I do hate you. What of it?
Right.
So messed up. I feel like Althea is the only one who sees Malta for who she is and treats her as such. Like, she's the only one. Yeah, she gets annoyed with Malta, but like she knows that Malta's a teenager and that it's just a phase and she's gonna grow out of it. And like you can be annoyed with her, but still love her because she's your family.
I mean,
Recognizes that Malta is a product of her environment and that she's too smart to be like treated like a child, and that she's getting ignored and stifled, so she's acting out because she wants attention and she's bored. And Althea sees that, and she even acknowledges, like, if it weren't for my father taking me on Vivacia, I might have ended up very much like
Just
Malta.
like her. Yeah.
Which I think is probably true.
Yeah, I believe it. I think they're very similar.
but also Althea isn't like entirely blameless. Like, she's the first part of this chapter, she's like, okay, mother, we can talk about it when only the adults are around. And it's just like, come on, like. And then she's like, this is not a matter for children. And then in the same chapter, she's talking to Amber. And she's like, Malta is certainly not a child. And I'm like, why is it that when you interact with her that you, like, talk down to her and treat her like a child, and then you flip around and she's like, she's a little demon? Like, Althea, like, gets better about it throughout the section, but she's certainly not great at the start here.
Yeah, I agree, but she's not as bad as Veronica and Kemri are.
Mm-hmm. To be fair,
around Malta as much as they have.
Yeah.
Like, if she would get as bad as them, if
She
Malta
probably
hadn't
would.
changed. I love how in that section she's also talking, and she's like, as for Selden, he's almost disappeared. Thankfully, like, somebody, like, some Vestrite adult has recognized that her nephew is, like, gone. Somebody's competent, jeez.
Mm-hmm.
Also, speaking of Malta and Selden, it's, like, pretty fucked up that, they get all this news, and Althea and Veronica are like, we have to group together, all of us Vestrite women, blah, blah, blah. And I think this is when they hug, Veronica and Malta. And then Selden, like, walks in, he's like, Malta and Papa aren't bad anymore. It's like, you have to be treating someone so bad and being so obvious about it for a little kid to pick up on it like that.
I know.
Like,
that's so,
that just
so
shows.
sad.
I know. It's so. I feel so bad for Malta.
Mm-hmm.
It's really messed up.
Honestly, maybe Selden is, like, better off, like, not being there. Anyways, while we're on the Veronica hate train, at the very start of the chapter, she's, like, talking about Amber to Althea, and she's like, I wish you would not spend so much time with her so openly. She's not Bingtown, you know. And some say she is no better than the new traders. And it's like, I wonder who else in your close circle is no better than the new traders, Veronica. Well, at least he's Bingtown, so I guess that makes it A-okay.
I hate them. And it pissed me off that Althea was, like, taking care of him and, like, didn't, like, she was just, like, brushing him off like her mom did for a while in this section until she, like, really realized how bad he was.
Mm-hmm. It's like, for what reason? Like, they keep being like, oh yeah, he's just like an uncle to us, but, like, I don't know, man. I've had some relatives who I'm like, this is you're on some stupid shit right now. Like, I grew up with you, but, like, come on now.
They act like he's incapable of logical thought, or, like, I don't know, they treat him like a toddler. Like, that's just the way that he is, and we have to baby him and tiptoe around him and give him everything he wants so that he doesn't feel uncomfortable or unwanted. It's like, no, he's a grown-ass man. He's making choices that he understands. He has slaves. Like, I don't understand why they insist on babying him the way that they do.
Yeah, it's the most annoying.
Meanwhile, they don't have patience for the actual children in their family.
I know.
Right.
It's so messed up.
Right.
Oh yeah, also, like, we've been talking a lot about how, like, Malta's acting out to, like, get everyone's attention. And they have a line here which is, like, directly confirming that, where Malta's like, the boredom was driving her mad. Lately she found herself nettling those around her simply to stir them up. And it's like, I think you can sort of, like, frame it as, like, I think she's framing it for herself as boredom, but it's definitely this feeling of, like, being left out of the important stuff that's happening.
Yeah, I do feel bad for her. Even though she thought some pretty rough things about her family last section, she's definitely still going through it.
Okay, have we gotten all of the Veronica hate out of our system for this chapter, at least? For this chapter.
My only other note for this chapter is not until Amber's part, so.
I have one for Brashen and Malta's section. And then I think the rest is for Amber's too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because this Amber section is honestly pretty juicy.
Amber's got some bars in this one. Like, I have a couple quotes from her.
So yeah, this whole section is basically like Althea lamenting or ruminating on the kind of love that she wants and the kind of love that she feels limited in asking for because of her role as a woman, and talking through that with Amber. And she kind of like comes to some interesting conclusions. Like, my favorite quote is, "I don't want to be the wind in his sails. That's what I want someone else to do for me." And it's just like, it's so like candid in a way that like I love how like Amber / the Fool / they like bring that out of people, especially someone like Althea, who I feel like she's super honest about some stuff, but when it comes to her like what she wants, she's like, or like what she's like super cagey about it.
She also, like Fitz, is an expert at lying to herself.
Mm-hmm.
She's a little bit, she's less delusional about it than but she still definitely, like, will convince herself of something because it's more
she's been convincing herself she doesn't like Brashen this whole time, and she just gets mad at him because she feels feelings about him when he's around. So she's like, I hate you.
And she's trying to convince herself to like Greg this entire book. And then it's not working, and she's like, what's wrong with me?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you just don't like him, homegirl. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Speaking of Althea's men, Brashen burned a hole through his lip? Is that what happened? Because he's like, there was a small Sinden burn at the corner of his mouth where he had fallen asleep while indulging, but his current mustache hid most of that. Does that mean it, like, went from the inside to the outside?
Could it have, like, fallen into the corner and, like, just burned right here?
Maybe,
like,
I guess. I have no clue.
I don't know. Yeah. It's gross.
And
also,
he's
it's
like,
funny that he's like, oh, no one will notice because my mustache, and Althea notices immediately.
yes.
Well, okay, he also does say, like, right after that, like, Althea would notice, so.
I thought he thought that she wouldn't, and that because, like, she wouldn't be close enough to him to, like, see.
I thought it was like, if she got close enough, she would see.
Definitely would. She notices literally everything about Brashen. It's ridiculous. Because she noticed that, and then she's like, oh, and he's been, like, so annoying fidgeting with his, like, shirt. I know that he's reaching for that Sinden that he's got in his pocket. Like, she just knows everything.
She's like, I'm not going to notice him while noticing him.
Yeah. She's like, I can't make eye contact with him, but I literally notice every single thing about him.
Every detail.
And Malta's like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Peculiar.
She smells the secret.
And as we learned from the last section, secrets are power. Thanks, Kefria.
Kefria annoyed me in this section, but we'll get to her later. I have some words about her. Again.
Who's top on your hate list this time? Is it Kefria or Ronica?
Or is it Devad with the steel chair?
Yeah, it's him.
I hate him too.
Yeah, I hated him. But all of the Vestroid adults pissed me off just because they catered to him. So they all, like, are up on the list because of him.
Like, at detriment to themselves. Like, several times, Veronica and Althea both think about how it will look really bad that they're saying, like, things against slavery when they're friends with Devad and they're riding with him to the council. And then, sure enough, it, like, smacks them in the face. Like, they might not get the help or support that they need because people think that they're aligned with new traders just because they're fucking babying Devad to restart. Like,
well, it doesn't help also that there's a rumor going around now that's true that Vivacia was being used as a slave ship. So, like, there's the rumor that their ship is used as a slaver, and they're, like, hanging out with Devad still, who is clearly in favor of slavery and the new traders. Like, it doesn't look good on them, and then it seems like they're trying to put up a front saying, like, oh, we hate slavery, like, we need to get our ship back. But, like, it looks like they just want it back so that they can do it again.
Oh, you hate slavery. That's why you gave your ship to a foreigner who immediately started trafficking in the slave trade.
Mm-hmm. And we really get to see how, like, Veronica's concerns about the reputation of the family are just like, no, you've actively been crumbling your reputation. Like, Greg is usually, like, a chill, soft-spoken guy, and he's like, well, maybe you shouldn't be around Devad Ristard. Maybe he's the reason that y'all are down on your fortunes. Maybe if you guys had better friends. Like, he just goes for the throat there.
He's literally not wrong at all.
Mm-hmm.
But anytime somebody brings him up, like Devad up to the, like, Vestrites in a negative way, they, like, dig their heels in. Like, it's not loyalty, it's just stubbornness. And they're like, well, we've been friends with him forever, so we need to stay friends with him.
They talk about him like he's, like, their racist old grandpa who they tolerate because he's gonna die in a year.
Yeah. And it's not even like they're in his will. So, like, they don't have any money to gain from him or, like, being around him. So, like, why would you continue to ruin your reputation for this and gain nothing ever?
It just don't make sense. Anyways, back to Althea and Amber, though. Another quote I really liked here is Althea's, like, musing about, like, just about how her life would be easier if she could, like, fall into a certain role of, like, this big town trader daughter. It's like, I must pretend to want things I don't really want. Sometimes I almost convince myself I do want them. If I could want them, life would be easier. Which also, like, obviously talking about, like, Greg, for one, but also just, like, there would be, like, a host of things that would make her life easier if she didn't, like, if she wasn't super resolute on being a sailor. But she's like, that's just not me.
Amber says is talking about, like, how you can change what you want if you love somebody. And she says, to love another person like that, you have to admit to yourself that perhaps he has needs you cannot fulfill, and that you have tasks that will take you far away from him. And, like, you know that eyeball emoji that's, like, side eye? That's what was
The one that I always use.
As I read it. Because I was like, no one can convince me that that is not about Fitz.
For sure. 100%. It's not Amber talking rhetorically. It's Fitzy Fitz. It's our boy.
Mm-hmm. And it's like tasks that take you far away from him. Huh. Yeah, almost like 6 duchies to Bingtown far.
Like, whenever I see the crossover like that, or I can tell that Amber is referring to Fitz, I feel like a little cloud up in the sky, like above her, that's getting to soak up gossip or something. I feel like a little gossip gremlin that's, like, in the story.
Yeah. I love whenever we get little snippets of Fitz.
Because, like, our friends Jared and Julie are reading right now, and, like, Jared got close to predicting that it is the Fool, and I can't wait for the section where she doesn't carve Paragon's face this book. She does it while they're sailing next book, I guess. But it's coming.
I don't even think that's the section where, like, people would find out that Amber is the fool. I always assumed it was when, like, Amber takes her gloves off and touches Malta's neck and, like, leaves the silver fingerprints.
Wait, she does that?
Yeah.
I forgot that entirely.
I think if I hadn't known, I don't think I would have figured it out because I'm not an observant first-time reader. But, like, if I could have, it would have been that gave it away.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's 2 little, like, fingerprints of silver on the back of Malta's neck after Amber touches her there.
But, like, I don't even think they know that it's fingerprints because Rain looks at it and he's like, oh, you've got, like, little silver scales or something like that. Like, it's something else that he describes it as, but we know, like, if you've read Farseer, you kind of know, like, holy shit.
I feel like if you read the description of Paragon as Fitz, like, specifically the part where, like, it gets to his broken nose and it's like, his nose is broken. It's like, it's perfect the way it is. Like, I feel like you could get it from that, but maybe not. Like,
I think if I wasn't thinking about Farseer, it wouldn't, like, click in my head. Because I don't hear a broken nose and immediately think of Fitz. Like, in combination, the broken nose, the axe, like, when we know that that's what it is, it's obvious.
mm-hmm.
But if I wasn't looking for it, I wouldn't have picked up on that.
That's her. I wonder if there's going to be, like, I feel like Jared will pick up on it, but so far, like, every time Jared has made an accurate prediction, Julia's been like, I don't think that's the way it is. So I'm wondering if we'll, like, get to the final live show and Jared will be like, yeah, Amber's the fool. And, like, Julia will be like, what? Huh?
You don't get confirmation until the first book of Ponyan.
Mm-hmm. They lay it on pretty thick, though.
Especially with the fool's horse being named Malta, like, that's it right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have any other notes for this section. I was just sad about how I think that the way that Brashen has, like, gotten back into Sinden addiction is, like, it's really well written how there's, like, sort of this slow curve of, like, yeah, you know, it's just warm and nice, and now I can't go 5 minutes or any stressful situation without having a craving for it.
And you know he's even stressed more than usual because he knows he's got only a little bit left. And he's like, I'm not going back to the ship, so, like, this is all I've got.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts actively having, like, visible withdrawals. Yeah, withdrawals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, poor guy's having a rough time. Althea's
Starts, like,
beating up on him.
basically
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, it doesn't help that he sees Althea and Greg together, like, at the Traders' Council. I'm sure that ripped his whole heart out. And so he's, like, heartbroken, and Althea's being mean to him, and he's going through withdrawals, and now he's got some, like, newly freed slave kid that is, like, following him around, like,
Oi, governor, let me sail on your ship.
I love the way that his dialogue is written.
Again, they have, like, a sassy, like, Cockney newsboy. It's just...
They really do. Like, he walked straight out of a Dickens book into live show.
Like, honestly, the first time I read this, I was kind of a little annoyed, because I was like, this kid is just too ridiculous. Like...
I love how his first line of dialogue is like, she smells like pig shit.
yeah.
And then, like, how he's, like, sagely later, like, pig shite is the worst thing to smell like, or whatever.
Yeah. He's like, I'd rather become a pirate if I have to because I don't want to shovel horse poop anymore.
I mean, I love how we've talked about literally everything in this chapter except, like, the most important plot thing, which is just Kefri, Ironica, and the whole family being told, like, by the way, Vivacia's been captured by a pirate.
I kind of forgot that happens in this, like, chapter. There's so much other stuff that happens, too.
I mentioned that they get that news and then they have a little family moment and they hug.
Mm-hmm. And Malta finally gets brought into the family circle.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I took note of that. I just feel so bad at the end of this chapter. I think right after they find out, Malta comes in and she's like, Father said he would come home. He was going to make everything right. He's going to come home and make us rich and throw Althea out and make everyone treat me well. And I was like, damn, that's fucking sad. Like, the fact that she needs her dad to force everyone to be nice to her, like, her family to be nice to her. Like, it just, all the things before was like, okay, come on. But, like, that part was really sad for me. I felt really bad for her.
I felt like 50% bad for her.
I felt really bad because, like, if your family's treating you so poorly that, like, your only hope is your dad coming back and saving it is, like...
I think I would have been a little more sympathetic if she hadn't been, like... he would have thrown out Althea, like... Oh, on God? Hello?
Well, Althea's being rude to her and, like, stuff like that. So, like, I can see why she's mad. And Althea catches her whenever she's trying to snoop. So, like, it's really pissing her off.
Yeah.
She probably doesn't actually, in her heart, have a single feeling or thought towards Althea. She's just parroting what she's heard her dad say and what she's seen her dad. Like, her dad hates Althea.
Yeah.
And she thinks that he's right about everything, so she's just like, Althea must be bad.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
and she notices that Althea is very improper when it comes to, like, her time that she leaves the house and, like, how she's dressed and all of the things that she's doing. Like, even though Althea tries to be proper, like, she still isn't truly there. And, like, Malta notices.
I think Malta's jealous, too, because ultimately what Malta wants is
that
some
freedom.
independence. Yeah. Like, she wants to be treated well by her family and to, like, have a little bit of freedom. And Althea gets that. So she's like, why does Althea get to do whatever she wants, whereas I have to, like, abide by all of these rules, and they don't seem to apply to Althea.
Yeah, Althea gets to come and go as she pleases. She's got the eye of Brashen. Like, what's this bullshit? I mean, she even directly says to Ronica after Althea leaves at the start of this chapter, like, why does she get to do all this stuff and I don't? Which is such a teenager thing to say also, but also it makes a lot of sense given just the general extra limitations.
I think that if Ronica could, she would be imposing those rules on Althea, but she knows that, like, if she puts too much pressure on Althea, that she'll just leave again. And the only thing that's stopping Malta is her, like, belief that these adults, like, hold some power over her. Like, if she were to kind of just snap and do what she wants one time, she would realize that, like, Ronica and Kefria can't really do shit to, like, stop her from doing what she wants, to be honest.
It's all the thing of, like, she was holding out hope that Kyle would come back and, like, set everything right. So it's like, she just has to hold on. I'm scared to think of what would have happened if, like, they found out, like, they had confirmation that Kyle died. That would have been a very different arc for Malta.
That's her villain arc. That's the only thing that needed to change to make Malta a villain.
Or maybe it would just make her, like, an anti-hero. Like, okay, as soon as I find out about the dragon, I am marching to the Rain Wilds. I'm doing whatever I can to get this dragon, and I'm burning down the Pirate Isles. I could see Queen of the Pirate Isles Malta arc. Anyways, we already talked a little bit about future sections, so let's just pull the Band-Aid off and get right into it. Chapter 16, Taking Charge. So the name of this chapter refers, like, mostly to... it refers to, like, two characters. Firstly, Malta, who, now that she has a goal to work for beyond just her own self-preservation, immediately takes into hand the only resources she has, which are her courtship towards Serwyn and Rain. and tries to get them to help her and like use their finances to get Kyle back. Then you also have Amber, who meets with Brashen and Paragon and tries to convince Brashen to help her negotiate the sale of Paragon to save his life and potentially save even more.
Brashen reminded me of, do you remember the part in Assassin's Apprentice after Chivalry dies when Verity just like runs into Fitz and he's like, oh, I thought you were your father's ghost. And Fitz is like, my dad's dead. Brashen like walking up and Paragon being happy and like, oh, Amber's gonna buy me and make a garden. And he's just like, no one can buy you. Nobody's gonna make a garden out of you. It's like, Brashen. Why would you do that? Paragon's like a little baby. And you're just crushing his dreams without like thinking anything of it when you know that he's irrational and like really moody.
And he's like, I'm gonna crush your dreams, but also can I still spend the night in like your hall because I have nowhere else to go? Like what?
Severe foot and mouth syndrome.
Yeah.
He's like both. It's both because like he's kind of in a bad mood in general probably because of Sindan withdrawal, but also because things ain't going so hot for him. And also he's still got like trader brain where he's like, life ships are ours.
Yeah. Yeah, we see how well that's working out for everybody. One live ship is literally not theirs, and the other one's being like considered to be sold to new traders.
Well, I think this is right. This is like immediately after he goes to the Vestrits and Malta tells him that Althea's been like, or Greg's been courting Althea or whatever you want to call that. So he's like, well, my dreams are getting shit on, so I'm just gonna shit on Paragon's dreams too now.
He's like, nobody can be happy because I'm miserable.
Right.
Honestly, this whole Sindan addiction arc, very, very Fitz vibes.
Yes.
This is coming off the elf bark Fitz.
Yeah, does Fitz ever break his like elf bark addiction, or he just kind of like slowly tapers off and he's like,
I think it's probably like when he gets like overdosed on it on Oslobjaw, that's probably enough of a traumatic experience to be like, never hitting that again.
I think when he like at the end of Tawny Man, when he kind of gets his shit together and marries Molly
and stuff.
Yeah.
Can we call that getting his shit together?
For Fitz's terms, yes.
Okay, you know what? Fair.
Yes. I thought it was really funny how Malta like sees the situation going with her and Serwyn and their like little night escapade, but the reality of it is like very disappointing to her, and she's like, it was perfect, a minstrel's romantic tale. She was the heroine, the young woman wronged by fate and her family, beautiful, young, and heartbroken over her father's captivity. Despite all her unloving family had done to her, she would be the one to make the ultimate sacrifice to save them all. Serwyn was the young man who had come to deliver her, for his manly young heart thundered with love for her. I was like, are you actually kidding me? Like, none of this is true. I mean, yes, your unloving family and, like, all the shitty things, yes, that's true, but, like, Serwyn's young manly heart does not thunder with love for you, baby.
Or, well, I think he thinks it does, but he doesn't, he's too young and stupid to know what love is. Yeah.
Right. The thunders with obsession.
That's a good one, yeah.
But, like, her romanticizing Serwyn like that reminded me so much of Keffria doing that with Kyle, except, like, we can understand why Malta would do this. This is Malta's first real situation of, like, courting and love and relationship. She's being a normal teenager. That's what they do. They, like, over-romanticize and, like, make all of these things so big. But, like, Keffria, was a grown woman in her marriage, like romanticizing it, thinking that Kyle's like this whole different person than he is. And I just have zero patience or intolerance for Kefria at all, and like all of the love and patience for Malta in the world.
I mean, again, we talked about how like potentially Kyle groomed her, and she was also like
Yeah.
weirdly sheltered. I think for all the shit her family does to her, Malta kind of gets to passively learn from their failures. So,
Kefra is like stunted. It's like she's still in some ways stuck at like Malta's age.
Mm-hmm.
And Malta grows and evolves beyond that, but Kefri is kind of like stagnant. And that probably is because Kyle basically groomed her. Like, that shit fucks with your brain development.
and don't get me wrong, none of this is like saying that like Kefria doesn't deserve shit for like the way she acts towards Malta, because like that's still whack. But like I can forgive her for like romanticizing her relationship with Kyle.
Especially because she only sees him once every 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's normal to still feel, like, in the honeymoon stage, but Kyle's really a shit.
Well, when you don't see someone all the time, like, you don't get as tired of them, or, like, the little things don't bother you as much. But it's that, like, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Like, obviously, if he does something bad once, when you see him, you're like, oh, he was grumpy because he was on the road all that whole time, and all these other times he's been nice to me, and blah, blah, blah. So
it reminds me of like cool Wynant syndrome, where like because they're not around except for like a little bit, they get to they're like, I'm cool and wacky and all of that. Yeah.
This is the section where she also she's just comparing Serwyn left and right. She compares him to Rain first, and she's like, Rain would have brought me flowers at least, and he would have kissed me and done all of these things, because Serwyn comes empty-handed. And then she compares him to Brashen, and she's like, yeah, like, the comparison is not that good. It makes her conquest less of a triumph, because Serwyn is still so young compared to, like, his brother. Poor Serwyn can't catch a break.
Mm-hmm. And like Serwyn is not even doing that bad. He's stupid, but like he's trying.
And he's doing everything right. Like, it would have been so like improper for him to kiss her right then and there. And like Della would know that, and that's why Della's like, oh my god, you're like basically naked, when she's like in her little nightgown. So, like, Dello knows about all of these, like, proper things, and so does Serwyn, clearly. So, like, he would never dream of, like, taking advantage of her and, like, kissing her while all of these traumatic things are happening to her. He's thinking, like, how do I solve this for her?
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot like Althea with Greg.
I was about to say.
Like Althea's super turned off by the fact that Greg would, like, ask to kiss her, want to follow, like, Trader rules. And that's exactly how Malta is with Serwyn. As much as they, like, butt heads and don't want to acknowledge that they're alike, Althea and Malta are so much alike.
Yeah, Amber even says it last chapter, and then like Althea gets mad about it.
Which is funny, because Althea says it first.
Yeah. She's like, I could have turned out like her, but I didn't, okay?
Yeah. We're not the same.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of comparisons involving Malta, I love like the compare-contrast that happens in Rain's dreams between Tintaglia and Malta, where it's like they both have like the same like even like Malta's like initial introduction to Rain's dreams is like asking for help, but also it's like the same kind of like fire and stubbornness. And it's like, yeah, Malta is honestly such a dragon in like, even right now with her like self-centeredness And like like she's super passionate. She's super like me. That is such a dragon thing.
That's why she makes the perfect elderling, because she's like basically close enough to them that she could be one of them, and they're like, let's give her some cute scales and stuff. She's one of us now.
Which is really interesting because like the whole point of dragons isn't it like I think that the fool articulates it. It's supposed to remind humans that they ain't top dog. But
Yeah, you know that shit.
I kind of feel like the elderlings also remind the dragons that they ain't shit either, especially in Rain Wilds.
Yeah, definitely. And I think maybe that was kind of the purpose for elderlings back in the time too. But like, we see the relationship so differently from the past, and maybe that's just we like get to see the best parts of it, and like all the things that were like in the skill stone, like the memories and everything like that are all like the glory and all of that stuff. So we don't see how like kind of cocky and stuff the dragons were back then.
I think they might have also just been like a little bit more civilized, because when Malkin is getting those memories with the minstrel serpent, they're like, you were a minstrel, and like they're talking about how the serpents would never like attack each other, and that's beneath them, and they're like bestial, and it's like the dragons are mean to each other and get in fights and just like think that they're always right all the time. So it seems like their memories were a little bit more like structured and civilized and reasonable than dragons are. Yeah. And I don't know if it's because they're building from the ground up, they don't have this like elderling hierarchy anymore.
It's
Or
probably that, and it's probably also that like they probably lost some of their memories and stuff when they like were serpents and stuff like that, so they lost some of their not humanity but like the
Dragonity.
dragon version of that. Yeah.
And because they don't wake up in this great place, and they're like, most of them are somewhat deformed and stuff like that, so like they go through all of these hard things, so like it makes sense why they're like the way they are. And I feel like Malkin or like Mercor or whatever is like the closest to what the past dragons would have been, and like maybe what they can become like in future generations. Speaking of that, I was thinking about this while I was reading Rain sections. The serpents go up and like sing out into the lack because they're singing also for the dragons to hear them.
Oh,
And
that's
like they just don't have any dragons to listen to their songs right now, but they like sing up there out of habit and like out of tradition now.
That makes a lot of sense. I just chalked it up to the dragons or like the serpents are just weirdos, but that makes a lot of sense.
I did too for a while, and then I was like, wait a second, this makes sense. Because it was like right before Tintaglia is like upset, and she's like, why can't I make you understand what you're doing with your cruelty? You're killing us all for all time. And I'm like, oh, she means like the serpents are screwed too. Like she must realize that it's been too long, and if she doesn't go to help the serpents, there will never be any more dragons to come. Like she'll be literally the last one. And then I was like, oh, like the dragons help the serpents, and then I was like, oh, the serpents like interact with and like sing to the dragons. And it was very full circle.
It's interesting how like the last dragon, the last of its kind, is like such a fantasy trope, but like I don't know, the execution here feels like relatively fresh, and I think like adding the curveball of the serpents is really what it is.
And then in the next trilogy, Icefire comes in and he's like, I'm the only dragon left too.
I love that there's this whole epic thing about, like, at the end of Tawny Man, Icefire getting released and him and Tintaglia, like, doing their whole mating thing and whatever, and then it gets to Rain Wilds and you find out that they just, like, hate each other.
Yeah.
Like, they are not experiencing domestic bliss at all.
It's like, now that there are more of you, thank God, because
Yeah.
I cannot stand him. I just was with him because he was the literal last guy.
So funny.
She's like, he's old and condescending, and he's kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
I kind of wish he would die already.
Yep.
Anyways, rolling back to the Brashen and Amber conversation, because that has some of my favorite quotes in maybe the entire trilogy. There's just like this one, yeah, there's just this one page section where like Amber is just like speaking some truths to Brashen. Because Brashen is like, I did nothing wrong. I don't have bad intentions. I'm innocent. And Amber's like, well, half the evil in this world occurs while decent people stand by and do nothing wrong. It's not enough to refrain from evil, Trell. People have to attempt to do right, even if they believe they cannot succeed. Even when it's stupid to try, especially then. And I'm like, yes, that's the message of the entire series. That's just the theme right there.
Yeah.
It's got heavy real world connotation.
Mm-hmm.
Also about the, like, Brashen, Amber, Paragon part. There's a part where pirates are mentioned, and Paragon says, I know about pirates. They kill and kill and kill on their decks. The blood soaks in deeper and deeper until your wood is so full of lives you can't even find your own. Then they chip off your face and open your sea cocks and you go under. The worst part is they leave you to live. That's like the first concrete, like, confirmation or explanation that we get from Paragon himself about what happened. Like, everything is a mystery, but here you find out, like, you at least know that it was pirates that led to his face getting, like, hacked up, and that one of the, like, sinkings was because of pirates.
And that whole section gets, like, triggered by Kennit's name being brought up. And that's what, like, makes Paragon think about them. So, like, if someone was really paying attention to, like, the Kennit and, like, Paragon storylines, they could, I think, have, like, drawn some pretty strong connections to them.
I mean, especially because the next chapter is literally Kennit going like, yeah, Egrot raided this island, and Egrot proved stuff about live ships. Egrot live ship, Egrot live ship. And it's like, it's right there.
There
And
is
Kennit's like, now that I have my own live ship, I can go and, like, steal all of Egrot's treasures.
Well, and in the chapter where Brashen finds that Vivacia painting, someone says, like, oh, they got it from a live ship because Kennit got a live ship. And Brashen's like, no one ever could. Someone says, well, Egrot got a live ship. That's the rumor. And here you hear Paragon saying that pirates got him. Like, that, you could make that connection if you were paying attention. I definitely wasn't when I first read it, but...
No, me neither. Yeah, it seems so obvious now, like, reading it back.
There's like so many hints. It's just, again, it's the whole like across the world thing. I think I did start to like pick up on like something here. I just like didn't put together the pieces the right way. Okay, I have some more Amber quotes because, again, Amber went off. Everyone thinks courage is about facing death without flinching, but almost anyone can do that. Almost anyone can hold their breath and not scream for as long as it takes to die. true courage is facing life without flinching. And it's like, yeah, the fool would know about that. And the fool does both. The fool faces death and then faces like a life where they don't know what's going to happen right after that. So you're super brave, fool. Don't worry about it.
Sometimes I just think about all the bad things that are going to happen to the fool after this, and I feel so bad for them.
And you think that everything in Tawny Man is going to be the worst of it, and it's definitely not. Which, like, makes it so much worse.
It's like, it's such a farce. I hate it. How are you going to torture, you're going to torture my child to death, bring them back to life, separate them from my boy, and then be like, that's actually, that's not enough. Like, I was so sure that, like, we're chilling. And then everything in the last trilogy.
Oh, I know. And I always talk about these books about, like, how bad I feel for Fitz and how hard of a life Fitz has. But, like, when you look at it objectively, like, Fitz kind of has it.
He had a great life.
Yeah. Like, compared to the fool, Fitz's life is a cakewalk.
I think we feel it's worse because, like, we get it from Fitz's perspective.
Yeah.
And also, the fool is like, oh, I'm so sorry for having to, like, make you die and stuff.
The fool's also making themselves die.
Yeah.
And that's not even, like, we don't even see all of it that happened, because their life was terrible and they were tortured before they left Claire's the first time, too. Like, before they even go to the Six Deathies. Ugh, poor baby.
And the fool lived longer than Fitz. So, like, even longer lifespan to have horrible stuff happening.
Do they end up getting unblinded by the end? Like, I know the dragon blood undoes a little bit of it.
I think it does the whole thing.
Fully reverse? Okay. Well,
Like, they can see it. Once the dragon blood is in them, it starts changing them so they can, like, see, like,
shadows and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought I got, like, vibes that they were, like, the Predator. They just have, like, heat vision.
Yeah, it's definitely weird at first, I think.
Okay, my last quote from this section, obviously another Amber quote. Talking to Brashen, stop using every mistake you make as an excuse to fail completely. This one also kind of hit because I feel like this is, like, I feel like sometimes this can happen with, like, depression and stuff where it's like, so, like, one bad thing will happen and it'll just be like, oh shit, everything's bad. Like, just, like, spiral. And it's like, obviously that's not using every mistake as an excuse. That's just, like, but it gave me, like, similar vibes as, like, just because one thing has gone wrong, you don't have to give up totally.
Amber could be a therapist.
Definitely.
This is why Amber needed to meet up with Wintro, and, like, just, like, there's so many characters in this series who need a therapist.
Well, it's interesting though, because she is like, I was seeing therapy, or I went to see therapy.
That makes it sound like therapy's a person.
I know. Well, he, like, never calls his therapist by a name. He says, like, I've been seeing therapy. Which I think is so funny. But Amber's been, like, doing therapy for everybody, but she never does therapy for Fitz. Fitz never sees therapy with the fool. But it's probably just because Fitz doesn't listen. Yeah. Would not acknowledge.
I think the fool tries.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's not without trying that, like, Fitz doesn't get therapized. It's just...
Therapized?
Fitz never sees therapy.
Therapy sees him, but he does not see therapy.
The farcier version of touch grass is just, like, see therapy.
Yeah.
Because they do be touching grass all the time. They just,
They be living in grass.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any other notes for this chapter?
I don't think so, but I do love the skill dream and stuff, or not the skill dream, the like shared dream that Malta and Rain have, and I love that Tintaglia comes and like kind of takes over.
It gives me like big reminders of like when that happens with Nettle. I'm so excited for that.
I also thought it was so funny how like they're having this serious conversation, and then the like dream couple that they created is like getting so much more intense. And
They're just necking it.
They're walking past, and Rain's like, "What can I do for you? Like, how can I help?" And somebody else, like Malta, makes someone else say, like, "Kiss me." Like, you know that's what she wants right in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And Rain's like, "Oh, that was weird. Like, how can I help you?" And she's like, "Fucking kiss me."
Weird. Anyways.
Yeah. I thought that was so funny.
And like he does kiss her in the end. She does get it.
Because she throws herself into his arms and is looking up at him.
Don't they like kiss through his veil?
Mm-hmm.
And Malta's like, "Actually, this is kind of hot."
Yeah, they think back about that in Rain Wilds. They're like, that was kind of like that was kind of erotic, don't you think? Like,
Remember when we used to kiss between your veil?
Rain's like, "I can put it back on if you want."
it's crazy because like Rain Wilds, Malta, and Rain are like such different people. They've grown so much.
They have a whole ass kid. Like, they're parents.
Oh my
They're like
gosh.
real grown ups.
And Malta has like a super traumatic childbirth too.
Malta gets like kidnapped and almost murdered.
Yeah.
Yeah, as
Go
she's like
through it.
actively in labor and has to hide the fact
I
that she's
forgot
the whole
about
time.
that. Poor girl goes through
And
so much.
Yeah. And then her baby just like comes out and she can't even check to see if it's alive, and she's like, "Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry."
Mm-hmm.
And then she ends up killing that guy that kidnapped her.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
That part.
And then her baby is like dying for like what? Isn't her baby like dying for like a month until they take him to Kelsinkra?
Yes. It's like having trouble breathing.
Thanks, dragons.
So stressful. Like, I remember I was listening to the audiobook and I got home from my walk and like kept listening to it because I was like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my
I
god."
was sweating reading it.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And like Rain Wild is quite boring sometimes, a lot of the time.
Y'all haters.
And then there'll be like really intense, stressful parts like that, and you're like, "Oh shit."
Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah. And Realm of the Elderlings is not like Game of Thrones, but it's also not like you don't know that everything's gonna turn out all right. So it's like, oh yeah,
Great.
like Malta could just die here. Her baby could just die on the way to Kelsinkra. Hobb would do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Would and has with freaking Ketrican losing her first baby on the way to, what's it called?
Yampe.
Yeah.
You know what else is rough? Chapter 17, Marooned. So this chapter, we've been with the people in Bingtown for a while, so now we're switching perspectives back to Kennit. And this chapter is a bombshell because we get to meet Kennit's mom, honestly, I don't know about y'all, I just kind of, when I first read this, I just assumed that Kennit popped into the world fully formed and evil. Like, the fact that he had a mom was crazy to me.
Same.
He takes Kyle away to fulfill his promise to Wintrow to make him disappear. And we get a lot of hints about Kennit's backstory throughout this section. Also, Saadar is still here and still being a prick, and Kennit's like, well, you're not going to follow my instructions, so you have chosen death.
I love when he dies. It's awesome. him because Kennit gives him a lot of chances, and then finally he's just like, okay, bye. And then he's like, why? And Kennit's like, I gave you the option, and this is what you picked.
I mean, to be fair, it's not like a real choice, but also Sadar is just like, he is poking the bear the entire time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He's like, you can't command what I do. You can't make me your slave. And then Kennet's like, perhaps not. However, I can make you dead. It's an intriguing choice, don't you think? Like,
Kennit has some amazing supervillain lines in this chapter.
When I read this chapter on my first read, I fully thought that Kennit was like on his way to being a good guy.
What?
A good guy with a morally gray compass.
Gray?
Like, he's killing bad guys. Like, Adar is a bad guy, Kyle is a bad guy, and he's doing like what Wintrow asked. And he's being nice to his mom.
Is that what we call nice?
He brings her trinkets.
he does.
It's not his fault that her tongue, he said that he hated when his mom's tongue got cut out the first.
And then right after that, he's like, it's kind of convenient, though.
That's morally great. I thought we were seeing like a little bit of the light with Kennit, because I didn't know that he was like partially forged. So I was like, oh well, he like takes care of his mom, and he puts Kyle in a bowl. Maybe he's gonna end up being good, and Wintrow's gonna like turn him into a good guy. But that's not what happened at all.
That sounds like something Ella would say to, like, her plan. Like, he's not all bad. Like, he did all of these good things.
This is Vivacia, like, talking to Wintrow, like you don't get it. He's actually, he's a really good guy.
Like, I didn't think he was really good. I just thought he was, like,
Not
in an evolution.
bad.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I was like, wow, Kennit has some of the best supervillain lines ever in this chapter. Like,
I liked the things that he did because I hate Kyle so much, and because I don't.
fair. It's ends justifies the means.
Yes. But he is weird. Like, the relationship that he has with his mom is really interesting to me because he does thoughtful things. Like, he brings her that tea set that he thinks that she would like, and he goes to the island to make sure that she's okay, like, every so often, clearly, and wants to make like a settlement there, and wants his mom to be able to live in the big house,
And, like, brought her people to, like, help
right,
take care of the house.
take care of the house. So it's like, I wonder if
He also
just a compulsion, like he doesn't really feel an emotional attachment. It's just like compulsive things he does that other version of him would do, or if there's some vestige of feeling towards his mom and that island.
I think that as much as Kennit tries to convince himself that he doesn't care, he clearly does care for his mother, because he did bring her all of those things, like things that he thought she would like in addition to things that she might need. And like, if he didn't care about his mom, he would have just killed her, because she is such a liability to him, alive in any place, like regardless of where he stashes her. Like, she is a very big liability, and like we kind of see that from like his memories of his father, and like how Egrat came and destroyed the whole settlement in the first place. Like, if he didn't care about his mom, he would have just killed her to like not seem as vulnerable. And he's like trying to convince Zadar to like bless the house because he knows that it would make his mom happy. Like, I think he definitely does care about his mom, even if he is like mostly forged. He like still has something for her.
He also hasn't visited her in like years, though. I think that like there's something there, but I don't think it's like.
I don't think he likes it. I don't think he likes that he still has that, so he'll sit off going to visit when feel feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he tries to pretend like he doesn't care, and then he kind of like has to go and visit sometimes. I thought it was interesting how like Kennit thought and like viewed his parents. He's like, they had complimented one another well. Now she was like half a person. The thought suddenly agitated him beyond his self-control. And I was wondering why that thought is so like upsetting to him.
I had a theory about that. Yeah, exactly.
He knows it deep down.
And that's why he's trying to like fill that void with like
Being a king and having a live ship and
because when like Winter and like when he's dying and Vivacia go like Winter and Vivacia go into him, he's like he just wants that like perfect connection with someone else, and because to make him a whole person. Which honestly, wait, actually, that's a really interesting like thing to come off of the thing from last chapter, where Amber and Althea were like talking about like I want to be a whole person. Yeah, like love isn't there to make me a whole person. It's two independent people doing their own thing.
right.
Well, and in the next chapter or the chapter after that, Kefria is thinking about like Kyle, and she's like, sometimes like having a stronger person to depend on is more important than having someone you love. And like Kefria's trying to do that, but I think that if you love someone, that your love can like make you guys strong together. And she's like, no, I just need someone to depend on. And like Kennit and Kefria's views of love are very...
It's also ironic that Kefria says that when she married Kyle for love when he was not the best choice. Traitor would have been the best choice and was the obvious choice, but Veronica and Ephraim, like, I remember them talking about it in the beginning because Veronica suggests marrying Althea off, and he's like, no, we wouldn't do that to her. We didn't do that to Kefria. We let Kefria marry whoever she wanted. And then Kefria tries to be like, I married in a sensible way, and it wasn't for love. It was for a strong man. It's like, no, you dumb bitch. That's not true. Like, you're lying to yourself.
Well, and she's like talking about how she wants to get like his respect, and that like she needs to wring it out of him and like prove to herself that she's worthy of his respect. Like, girl, that is not a healthy relationship or a strong person. Like, none of that is good. Like, you should not continue to base your worth off like what he thinks of you.
Also, as if she could wring any respect out of Kyle. Like, she has a vagina, therefore he will never respect her.
Yes.
There's nothing that she can
And the
do.
harder she tries, the less he will respect her.
Right. Like, she's just kidding herself.
Hell, even not having vagina is not a like prerequisite for Kyle's respect. Like, look at Wintro.
That's true. That's very true.
But he wears dresses, so like he's basically a woman, so.
Yeah.
Kyle doesn't respect anyone that, like, has a nice bone in their body.
Yeah.
Kyle doesn't respect anyone who doesn't respect him. And by respect, he means completely defers to him in everything.
Blindly obeys him.
Anyway, speaking of Kyle, he's locked in a basement now.
Yes. We love it.
I do think it's very strange that, like, this couple of Bloodlocks moved to this island in the middle of the Pirate Isles and build, like, a big house there and live there with their live ship. Like, why would traders do that? I want a prequel.
I thought that, like, this had, like, that Kennit's dad had already, like, gotten into some, like, bad shit with Egrot, or, like, at least the pirates, and that's why he was, like, they were living there kind of, like, off the grid.
Yeah, like, we get, like, a full thing with Paragon. Like, Paragon explains the whole story. I don't remember it exactly. I think it's sort of like, yeah, like, it's like he was a pirate, and sort of like when Kennit was born, he retired and is like, I'm going to make a paradise for my wife and child.
That makes sense.
And then E-Rock comes back and is like, no.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that we get a little snippet of like where Kennit gets the idea of becoming king of the Pirate Isles, because like his dad, he remembers his dad saying like, better yet, you'll be a king, King Kennit of Key Island. And like I think it's a mixture of his father saying that and like all the trauma that happens on Key Island, where like Kennit's response to that is like, I need to gain control, and the best way to gain control is to gain power, and the most powerful being you can be is king. And once I'm king, I will make sure that like nobody can ever do this to me ever again.
And speaking of trauma responses, it's really interesting to like contrast that with his mom's, where it's just like she never wants to go up to the big house. She lives super simply because she thinks that like extravagance was the reason that like they were like that everything happened. It's just a situation.
I feel bad for his mom, especially because like she tries so hard to talk to Kennit all the time, and he just like says what he wants her to say. It's like when the Fool and Ratsy are talking to each other, like the Fool talks Ratsy. It's like Kennit is the Fool and his mom is Ratsy.
You're comparing
So-
Kennet's mom to a taxidermied rat on top of a stick.
Yeah. Because that's literally what it is. He's like, she talks all the time, but like at least I can say like, I can make her respond the way I want and tell her like when a topic's over, because like she clearly can't say anything to make it continue. Like it's just really sad. Poor Kennet's mom.
I feel really bad for her.
Do we ever even find out her name?
I doubt it.
I think we probably get it like offhand, like, but yeah.
Poor Kennet's mom. Poor
Maybe we
mom
could
loves
find
it.
out from Amos Woodluck.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, I want to read out Kennet's supervillain lines now.
Yes, do it.
Like, when Kennet's like organizing everything, Sadar's like, "You're mad." Scarcely. Why do people always accuse me of that when I'm arranging things to my likings instead of theirs? Like, I don't get it. I'm just doing what's best for me. Like, come on now. Maybe you're mad.
That was kind of funny.
And then there's he was so weary of people telling him he could not do what he obviously could. When Sadar's like, "You can't make me a slave," and like Kyla's like, "You can't lock me up," and like Kennet's like, "I can though."
Watch me.
Yeah. He's like, see, usually you would say someone wouldn't do that, but
He has another line too, and he's like, so simply had he bought their lives from them, he reflected. Strange how men would resist slavery savagely, only to sell themselves for a simple chance at life. Speaking to Dirge or whatever, and Thela or whatever, the two former slaves who are like gonna go live there and become part of their like little
commune or whatever.
It was interesting how he like thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
And like doesn't realize that like having a nice simple life is what some people can actually want, and like that is desirable for them.
Yeah, they're not selling themselves if it's like a choice they make with their agency. Like, you gave them an option, they take it. That's not how it works for slaves.
It is a little sketchy though that he like drops them off on this island with no way of getting off if they ever wanted to or like needed to. Like, this is where they live now forever.
I mean, but they knew that.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I don't think. Like, I think Ankle is probably too far gone to process that stuff, but I know Dirge and the rest definitely.
Yeah, Dredge and his, like, pregnant girlfriend or whatever are on board.
Realize, I think they only know that after he brings them there and is like, you guys can live in, like, any of the other cabins, just don't take the big house. And they're like, oh, this is where we're staying. But it seems like such a good thing for them because she is pregnant and they want this like stable little house and this looks like it'll be the perfect place. But like, I feel like once they settle in and they, like, if they were other people, they would realize like, we're stuck here now forever. Because even if they did want to leave, they couldn't because they know about Kennit's mom and they know where this place is. So there's really no escape for them. I also always pictured this whole chapter happening at night. And so like whenever I see anything happening in it, it's always like dark nighttime. But it's actually like mid-afternoon when Kennit kills Sa'adar and goes back to Vivacia. It's so weird to me.
I think it makes sense because like it starts at night and then by the time they get to the island, it's like early morning.
I just still pictured it being like completely dark, which is very wrong.
It feels like murder should happen at night, but Kennit's like, well, it doesn't matter if it happens in broad daylight if no one can see it, so.
He's like, don't mind me.
Which, speaking of, I forgot like how, I thought he just like knocked him overboard and that was the end of it, but no, he takes his sweet time with like the...
He kind of has to, like he can't risk getting thrown into the water.
Oh yeah, no, like totally. But it's just like, I forgot like how much of a process it was.
Yeah, because Sa'adar, like, catches up to the boat, and he just cuts his hands whenever he tries to climb in.
That was so...
It kind of reminded me of like Whack-A-Mole.
Oh my god, yes. Whack-A-Dar. Yeah, that's rough. I love that the charm talks again and is like, only one creature has ever seen to the bottom of your dark, dirty heart and still chosen loyal to you. Like, the charm is definitely talking about Paragon, and Kennit's like, oh, you're talking about yourself.
The charm fucking hates him. The charm is like glued to him and would jump ship if it could.
Yes.
Charm, like, obviously hates him so much.
Yeah. It is not the charm. But Kennit, like, doesn't want to acknowledge or, like, think about Paragon.
Which is, like, it's honestly crazy because, like, he's thought about his dad, his mom, everyone else except Paragon. He can't even, like, and we're seeing this through his point of view, and he can't even bring himself to think about Paragon once. Like, the closest he comes is saying, the heart of a life ship was true. Egret had proven that many years ago. Which, like, again, if you're quick on the draw, which I was not the first time I read this, you could definitely connect that to Paragon.
I was not either. I don't think many people... I mean, I shouldn't do that. I think most readers aren't. Because they're too busy hating Malta and...
Watch, we're going to have a bunch of comments that like are going to be like, well, actually, I figured it out last book, so...
I knew from page 1.
Yeah, this just confirmed my theories. But I think you could honestly you could get it by this point, but also like Hobb is just really good at like making it so that like the pieces are there, but it's hard to put them together because they're just like wrapped in a bunch of other shit going on. Like this chapter is one of the most hectic chapters in the entire book. So
We get like flashbacks of Egret like raiding and everything. Like so much happens that Kennit tries to push through and like think around. And like when they shut Kyle up in the wine cellar, Kennit's like, once the door was shut, like it cut off the screens completely, just like he remembered. Like that.
that was a line. Yeah.
And like I feel like it leads you to believe that like he locked people in there before, but I think he was the one that was locked.
I thought it was his dad, right?
I thought Egret put his dad down there, and Kennit knew that no one could hear him.
He was put down there too, but maybe it is just his dad. And like Kennit's in like the hold of Paragon.
I think Egret wants to keep Kennit with him all the time.
Oh yeah, Keith.
It's kind of crazy. Other than everything going on with the satrap, Egret is like the root of everything bad that happens in this series. It's crazy.
And he never shows up like on screen once.
Yeah.
He's just like a shadow demon from the past.
It's crazy in this series of like so many characters who could be pure evil. You just have Egret just wins because he's just like this malevolent force. Like because we get to see into Kennit's head, he can't be that like perfect evil the way that Egret is. Or maybe that enhances it. But for me, I feel like getting to see his motivations and stuff makes him feel like at least slightly more human.
And knowing his backstory does the same too.
Right.
Like knowing all he's been through to like become who he is now.
Like we were talking about who had the worst life, bits of the pool. Kennit, probably. At least the worst childhood.
Kennit wins for worst childhood, followed by B. And then, like, the Fool wins for worst adolescent to adulthood to life
Elder.
after that. Yes. And Fitz is, like, worst middle parts.
This feels like we're giving out Emmys for like this.
For, like, the rest of his life.
Middle-aged in body, stupid young 20-year-old in mind.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I think the last note for this chapter is something that we had like some thoughts on, which is the charm says, "But for the sake of another, I will do what I can to preserve you, at least for a time." And it's like, fucking who? For who's this another?
I assumed it was Etta because the charm is like weirdly in love with her.
It could be her, and that's what I thought initially, but it also could be like Vivacia too. Because maybe he sees how, like, what good Kennit is doing for Vivacia, and he's like, let me keep him going.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, bring the dragon out of her or something, or like make her fully realized.
I don't know. The charm irritates me because I feel like it's the one thing that doesn't really get tied up at the end, or we don't really get good answers for.
I like to picture the charm drinking some silver and becoming like a little baby dragon, like a mini one.
That would be great. Oh,
Yeah.
What does happen to the charm after Kennit dies? Is Paragon?
I think it stays. I think Etta takes it, and like she's like, sometimes I can hear. I almost feel like I can hear Kennit whispering to me.
Oh, that makes sense.
And that would, like, fulfill Charm Kennet's dream life, because he does love...
He loves Etta. It's so weird.
It is strange.
I thought it could be Paragon, because maybe the charm, despite being a distinct person, still wants what Kennit wants, and Kennit wants best for Paragon. And, like, that would make the at least for a time make sense, because it's like, you can say hi to Paragon, and then I don't really give a shit about you. But I don't know.
Charm comes from Paragon. Because we know that pirates had Paragon for a little while, and how else would, like, some wizard would charm show up, sail in the pirate isles? So, like,
hacked off of
Paragon.
That
and
is...
maybe it's, like, part of a more pure dragon part of Paragon, because Paragon was, like, 2 different dragons. And then, obviously, the Ludluck life force.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe that's where it comes from.
No, that I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's also how it knows, like, more about Kennit than, like, it should. Because it hasn't been around for, like, Kennit's childhood, but, like, it knows all of the little secret things.
Right.
Okay. We're going to keep things rolling and going on to chapter 18, Wishes Fulfilled. Kennit goes back to the ship and is like, "Hey, Wintro, good news. I've sent your father to the Shadow Realm." Wintro is understandably shocked and is like, "That was an offhand statement? Where is my dad? I hate him, but bring him back to me, please." And Kennit's like, "You're so annoying, ship boy." And then the Vivacia and Wintro discuss the fact that Vivacia has decided to go into pirating with Kennit. And finally, the latter half of this chapter, we get a huge council meeting where the Teneras... This is the council meeting where the Teneras were supposed to state their grievances, but it looks like those in power aren't really in favor of that. But in the end, a timely statement from Althea kind of sparks the seeds of rebellion.
Yeah, a lot of shit goes down in this section.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I have, like... I say the chapter summary and I'm like, cool. There's like 20 things to talk about here. Nice.
My only notes really were from the Trader Council part.
Yeah, for the Kennit Vivacia part, my main thing was just like, Vivacia's like so bought into the idea of Kennit that it has me like second guessing my impression of him, and I'm like inside his head. It's if he's able to like turn on that charm for like all these people and get like a group of people around him, it makes sense that he's able to just sort of like gaslight everyone into being like, Kennit's so cool. He's grumpy sometimes, but
it's weird that Vivacia can be charmed by him, even though she like has that kind of skill connection to him and should like be able to see almost to like the core of his heart and like know that his thoughts are like pretty negative and shitty when it comes to all of these plans he's got, but like his plans on the surface seem so good.
Well, I think to an extent she knows that his motivations aren't necessarily super pure, but she recognizes that, like, despite what his motivations are, the outcome of what he's doing is good. Wintro says, like, something about him, like, not being a good person. She's like, no, I know he's not a good person, but what he's doing is good, or something like that. Like, obviously I'm paraphrasing, but...
And also, like, when he returns to the ship, Vivacia's like, there are some things you're keeping from me. And Kennit's like, well, you just have to trust me.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was so interesting that, like, Wintro is so jealous right now, and he's like, do you even need me? Like, if you don't, I can leave and go to my monastery. And Vivacia's like, what is all your longing to return to your monastery but a desire to retreat from what is wrong in the world? And, like, I feel like she hit the nail right on the head with that one. Because Wintro does kind of want to just pretend like everything that happened when he was taken from his monastery was just a bad dream. And he can go back to living, like, the life that Sa wanted him to live and not do any real good and bring about any good change to the world.
Mm-hmm. This is making me realize, like, a connection between Wintro and Kennit, because, like, Kennit also had, like, this perfect, beautiful place that, like, represented his, like, all the good in the world, except his was destroyed, and he's sort of, like, instead of, like, trying to return there, he's trying to, like, almost, like, make a better one, and Wintro's still exists as, like, an aspirational thing.
Mm-hmm. Something he should always will want to return to.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when things get hard, Wintro always, like, reverts back to, oh, I wish I was going to be in my monastery, like, everything would be good if I was at my monastery, but, like, he has changed so much, I think it would ruin the monastery for him, and, like, he would realize, like, kind of how hypocritical it is a little bit, like, over there, how they, like...
I feel like the priest would be like, Wintro, you're bringing the vibes down.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And, like, he starts off thinking that, like, the monastery and everything is so good and that they, like, do all this good for people, but, like, they don't do very much in general. They just kind of keep to themselves, and they're more, like, philosophical than, like, let's take this out into the real world and see what, like, help we can do and, like, help we can bring.
Okay, we good to move to the Traders Council section of this chapter?
Yes.
Okay, honestly, Althea had kind of a Veronica moment at the start of the section where, like, Althea's like, man, Devad's doing a lot of bad things lately. He's, like, helping the new traders. He's involved in the slave trade. But worst of all, he's going to sell Paragon. And I'm like, Althea.
Yeah. My note was, Althea, Devad offering to help sell Paragon is not worse than Devad keeping slaves and trafficking in slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Like, priorities.
I am just so annoyed that she, like, goes along with everything, and she's like just playing along with Devad, and she's like, oh, we have to humor him, like, he's our family still, but, like, I feel like she should have come back with, like, fresh eyes and been like, wow, he's, like, kind of a piece of shit. Like, it's sad that Malta is literally the only Vestite who sees him for who he is. And that's just because she thinks he's a dirty, like, ill-mannered old man.
Yeah, like, Malta hates Devad, but mostly for the wrong reasons, where she's like, ugh, he's so smelly. And, like, at the start, you I feel like I thought she was misjudging him, but it's like, no, he is kind of a piece of shit.
Most definitely. I think that it's so funny that when Greg is talking about how, like, he wants her to be on Ophelia when they ship out next, her first thought of the only solution to that is him offering her employment and not marriage. I'm like, if that doesn't clarify her feelings for him, I don't know what will, because
Right.
poor fucking Greg.
I know, I feel bad for him because she knows that she isn't interested. Like, this entire time she knows that. She's just trying to, like, convince herself, and then to an extent she's not even trying to convince herself, but she's not, like, giving him an answer. She's kind of stringing him along because he's helping them. And he's just, like, he's nice. I feel bad for him.
Me too. And his whole family is really sweet and like welcoming of her, and like she sits between his mom and sister, and his mom like holds her hand when she like stands up to talk about Vivacia. Like, they are an amazing, very nice, welcoming family, and freaking Althea's gonna ruin it.
I'm like, I want to marry into the Tenairas.
I know, they're so sweet and nice. Like, I like them all. And freaking Ophelia is amazing. Like, if she was my life, I would love her. We'd be best friends. She would be gossiping, and I would have to go and, like, find some drama to spill for her, too. Like, it would be great. We'd have a great friendship.
Yeah, I guess that comes back around to what Althea was saying, where, like, it would be easier. Everything would be easier if she loved Greg, but she don't. And she just gotta admit that to herself and him.
It really hurt my heart when she's talking to Greg and like Brashen sees them together, and like you can see that his heart is like shattering, like oh, and like Althea knows it too, and she still like just ignores him, and it just, I felt so sad for him. It hurt my heart real bad.
Honestly, Brashen, like, being off the Sinden still after that is pretty impressive, because like when Malta just told him that Greg was like seeing Althea, he was like, I need a stick of Sinden right now to counter this unpleasant feeling. Like,
Yeah. I think being with Amber also helps him like avoid going back into the Sinden. Like, she definitely is like encouraging him to get off of it, I'm sure.
yeah, I think
And I think he probably already had thoughts and ideas about getting off it anyways, and he's like, I know this isn't good for me, like, I would like to stop, but I have this constant flow of it, so like I might as well just indulge while I can. And then when he loses that ability and like sees Althea again, and Amber's probably like, bro, like, nobody's gonna respect a captain who uses Sinden all the time. It like makes him a little bit stronger at resisting the urge.
yeah, like when in the earlier chapter, he's like, he would have brought Sinden, but he knew Althea wouldn't like it. So, anyways, the council meeting, Althea just kind of goes off. She's like, this is dumb. We're doing infighting. We need to fight against the satrap. We need to... And, like, I love how someone's like, you're talking rebellion. And she's like, uh-huh, I am. What are you going to do about it?
No, that was wild.
Actually, her catalyst moment.
Definitely. Yeah, that was a strong thing. And I think she could have gotten them to there if she hadn't accidentally kind of derailed a little bit. But like, I think if she hadn't have asked for money, then it would have been different.
It's like her fatal flaw. She keeps coming back to Vivacia. It's like, oh, she's not that important.
If she would have focused on, like, how bad things are for Bingtown instead of just being like, my birthright is on the line.
Well, and Amber even says, like, I need you to realize that the things that are happening within your family and the things that are happening in Bingtown are all connected. And so if she would have just trusted that and was like, we need to, like, cut from the saw trap and all of that stuff, and, like, just stuck to her guns there, then things with her family could have resolved differently and maybe a little bit better. But because she is so obsessed with Vivacia and, like, her family issues also, she kind of screwed herself.
Yeah, she didn't have to say all that birthright shit. She just had to be like, Vivacia is captured and the Chalcedians are doing nothing about it. Boom, done.
She alienates not only the other traitors in the council, but her family too.
Because thinks all she wants is the ship back, which is exactly what she wants.
It's weird how this section is Althea at her best and her worst.
Right.
Because, like, next chapter, she is so unreasonable just because Brashen's there. But yeah, I always love the Traders' Council sections because I feel like Hobb, like, she knows how to, like, write a variety of positions or opinions that people could reasonably have. Like, sure, good.
She also knows how to write chaos. Like, it's very difficult to write, because you only, like, when you're reading something, you are reading what you picture, and you can only describe, like, one thing at a time. If you're, like, watching a movie, multiple things can happen at the same time, and you can take them all in. But when you're writing, like, you can't write a sentence where, like, you're looking at three different things, you know? Like, it's hard to describe, but it's really hard to write chaos, and she does it really well, both in, like, the physical chaos of a battle or something, and then the chaos of a council that's getting out of control, where, like, people are speaking over each other, and, like, tensions are heightening.
Yeah, she does a good job here, and then it also gets very, very chaotic at the end of the book, too, like, when the whole revolt happens. I found myself being a little bit bored at the beginning of the Trader Council, like, when they're going through all of the, like, minor annoyances and grievances that these people had, and I was like low-key wishing that we were in the mind of Malta following this stuff along, because I'm like, you would have skipped us past all of this stuff and we would be daydreaming about rain instead.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it was, like, intentionally boring to, like, kind of, like, get you annoyed and in the same mindset of, like, why are they talking about this bullshit?
Yeah, and to, like, show the calm, like, mundane aspects of all of this before kind of everything breaks loose and civility is thrown to the wayside.
Anyway, speaking of civility being thrown to the wayside, someone puts a dead pig in Devad Restart's cart.
Yes.
Good for them.
I love how, like, Althea's horrified, but then when she sees Trader Daw walking up, she's like, privately, she kind of wished that Trader Daw would also have a pig in his coach.
Yes. Kind of like that. And I think that it was made, like, Hobb made it seem like Brashen and Amber were the ones to do it. Like, you get kind of suspicious of them because they show up at the Traders' Council. I kind of assumed, I'm like, wait, did they do that? Because you know that Amber is so against slavery and how bad Devad is and how she, like, obviously speaks out against him a lot. And they show up at the Traders' Council, like, very randomly and very weirdly, and, like, they don't talk to anybody. Like, why are they really there? And then and you're like, what?
I thought they were there to try to, like, talk to Althea and the Vestrits as they were coming out of the council.
But they would have been there when they were leaving. They were there when everyone was going into the council.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I can't see Amber, like, needlessly slaughtering a pig. And,
no,
like,
me
being
either.
so gross
like,
about it.
Doesn't it seem like she set it up to where you, like, are suspicious of them? Like, especially on a first read. You're like, what's going on? Especially after the, like, pig incident happens. But then later you're like, oh, it wasn't them, because Brashen and they both come back to the Vestrite house and they're, like, still in their same clothes and it's not covered in blood or anything like that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't suspicious of them, but maybe that's because I knew Amber was the fool, so I knew that they wouldn't do that. You know, maybe if I hadn't known that, I would have been suspicious.
Yeah, like that didn't even come into my head at all. But also, I did also read this trilogy after reading everything else. So, okay, let's keep the ball rolling. Let's do the final chapter in the section, chapter 19, Aftermath. Althea drives Devad Restard back home and is done with his bullshit. And then she takes his little slave boy and drives home. And at that point, Brashen and Amber come in with the plan to refit Paragon and use him to go and rescue Vivacia. AKA the start of the most important events in all of this book.
And this trilogy.
Yeah, pretty much. I love how this chapter is called Aftermath when it's really just, it's the beginning of the entire trilogy. It's the beginning of the series.
It's the before math.
Yes. I still fucking hate Devad.
I love how Althea, like, just goes for his throat by being like, yeah, your son was blonde, wasn't he? Like, get his ass. And even, I would have respected Devad if he, like, actually got angry there, but he's still too much of a blubbering idiot where he's just like, why is everyone so mean to me?
No. He's
Why would you say that mean thing to me?
I'm just a little guy. Just a dude. I can't be evil. I'm too innocent.
He sucks. I am ready for him to get killed. That's a mean thing to say, but, like, I'm totally ready for him to go. Like,
We're getting rid of them one by one. Like, we finally got rid of Kyle and Saadar.
yeah.
God is next.
Coming for you. If only the satrap could have been after him.
Oh, yeah. I have no notes for this chapter except for that I'm proud of Malta, but I already said that earlier. So.
I brought up a good amount of my notes from this chapter when we were talking about other ones, especially the ones about stupid-ass Kefria.
Oh, speaking of Kefria, another little treat to hate her for. She does a little racism in this chapter where she's like,
A little racism.
as a treat. She's like, I have no problem with foreigners when they're courteous and nice to me. But this Amber lady, she's got like this brown skin and she just always assumes equality no matter what company she's in. Like, I read that line and I was like, Kefria, do you even know what you're saying?
Sexism and some xenophobia all rolled up into one.
Maybe her and Kyle were meant to be together.
Kefria smoking the bigotry blunt right now.
Yeah. You fucking sucks. The only Vestrite that I, like, 100% am rooting for in this chapter is freaking Malta. Because Althea's being annoying.
Althea's acting like a brat. Like, she's like, I don't want help if it's coming from Brashen.
She's literally being a teenager, and Malta's the
Yeah.
only adult in this one.
It's such a switch up, yeah.
It is.
And
And the fact that she, like, stays calm even with all of Althea's, like, annoyances and stuff like that, like, I'm very proud of her.
You can tell when she's like really close to losing her shit. Like there's a part where it says that she had to pause and take a deep breath and like close her eyes. You can tell she's like trying so hard.
And you know that she would cuss them the fuck out. Like, she
Yeah.
would go hard if she could, but she's, like, trying to remain adult and, like, be
How
taken
many?
seriously.
She asks like about the numbers.
like 5 times.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, it's not possible. And it's like, well, if it's not possible financially, then we can stop this. We could.
These other things.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, this is like the beginning of Malta's
Redemption arc.
glow up. Yeah.
Like, she gets shit done when no one else is willing, or no one else is able to.
She very much embodies a Vestrite in this chapter, and I am proud of her.
Mm-hmm.
I think her grandpa would be proud, too.
Mm-hmm.
and disappointed in the rest of his freaking family because of what the fuck. When they're talking about fixing up Paragon and stuff, Brashen says that he's an old ship and that far more wizard wood was used in his construction than in the later ships. I wonder if Paragon wasn't the only ship to have been like built from two different dragons.
Isn't that...
Surprise me.
I don't know if it's just... There's like a small segment where one of the no-name life ships like awakens as a dragon, like, and then just sort of like flips over his crew. This happens like, I think it might happen next book. It starts with a D.
Yeah.
It's like David or something.
He begs the serpents to eat him so that they can absorb his memories.
Yeah. I don't remember if it was 2 dragons or just 1, but...
I don't remember either.
I forgot about that completely.
Mm-hmm. It was such a shocking thing to me because I'm like, here's a new character. They're dead.
Yeah.
Here's a new live ship. Never mind.
Mm-hmm.
Be grateful for the 2 you get.
Oh, Rings Gold. Was it? I think that's the end of this section, right? Do we have any more notes?
I don't.
I'm just excited about like the action really starting and some very much crazy stuff coming. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, this was the section that really did it for me. Like, there's so much happening here, and I think that Hobb is laying it on thick with lots of the either foreshadowing or just clues for things to come. So, but yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time for chapters 20 through 24 of Mad Ship. But until then, see y'all.